Climate change refers to both human and naturally produced warming and its effects on the planet. It is the long-term change or shift in the average temperatures and weather patterns that have come to define the Earth's regional and global climates, and most commonly measured as the average increase in the Earth's global surface temperature. According to scientists, when the concentration of greenhouse gases like methane, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and many more are released into the atmosphere, and the warmth of sun rays are insufficient to disperse these gases back into space, this heat from the sun is trapped in the atmosphere, resulting in global warming.
Greenhouse is a kind of a house that is, the walls is mostly glass, and when heat enters the greenhouse, the heat will enter but it will not go out. So inside the greenhouse is much hotter than the outside. So the atmosphere is behaving like a greenhouse. It allows radiation to come in, but it doesn't allow radiation to go back. And since it is the heat that is generating all the reactions, whether it is distortion in the amount of rain we are receiving, whether it is distortion in the timing of the rain we are receiving, whether it is distortion in the amount of atmosphere we are receiving, leading to incidences of heat, leading to incidences of flooding. So we are actually responsible. So there is no two way about it.
The Earth's average temperature is currently warmer by about 1.1 degrees Celsius than in the late 1800s, while the global temperature is currently increasing by 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade, recording 2011 to 2020 as the warmest so far.
We have something they call vehicular emission. That is emission of carbon from cars. If you look at Nigeria, how cars are congested in urban areas, you notice that a lot of cars are emitting carbon into the atmosphere. We call it vehicular emission. And people tend to also use the generator they call a pass my neighbor. That a pass my neighbor is very dangerous to the health and also to the environment because it emits a lot. And actually solar is one of the ways of mitigating climate change, and instead of burning fossil fuel.
Climate change is said to be more than just temperature rise, as changes in one part of the world can influence others.
The 6 years since the Paris Climate Agreement have been the 6 hottest years on record. Our addiction to fossil fuels is pushing humanity to the brink. We face a stark choice. Either we stop it or it stops us. And it's time to say, enough. Enough of brutalizing biodiversity. Enough of killing ourselves with carbon. Enough of treating nature like a toilet. Enough of burning and drilling and mining our way deeper. We are digging our own graves.
Dangerous emissions have been blamed on the use of fossil fuels like petrol for transportation or coal for cooking and generating heat. Other human acts such as deforestation and upgrade of landfills are sources of emission.
If we really want to be up and doing, we want to reduce the amount of heating, there are many ways we can bring about adjustment in our way of doing. And investigations have shown that up to about 50 to 60% of the trapping in the atmosphere now is being carried out by carbon dioxide. So which means if we can carry out adjustment in these activities in order to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide we are releasing, it means we are now contributing towards reducing by at least half.
Research shows that 60% of methane was released globally into the atmosphere in 2019 as a result of human activities, while natural resources contributed about 40%. Scientists also avow that when methane is released into the atmosphere before it is burned, a lot of harm is done to the environment. High levels of methane can reduce the amount of oxygen in the air. The warning is that if global temperatures rise by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, the Earth is likely to experience more severe effects as millions of people will be exposed to extreme weather conditions, most of which have been evident in Nigeria.
The high temperatures in the country, especially within the first 4 months of the year, have become higher to the extent that a number of diseases that are associated with extreme heat are encountered in widespread across the country. The situation is so bad that heat alerts are now issued in the country to alert Nigerians about the heat, the extremity in the heat we are going to witness within these 3 months of the year every year. And particularly warnings are given to Nigerians about some steps, some action that they need to take in order to get themselves protected, in order to get themselves prepared, in order to get themselves prevented from the kind of diseases associated with the heat event.
The duration and intensities of rainfall have increased, causing floods in many parts of the country. Climate projections shows that precipitation in the southern areas is expected to rise, causing a rise in sea levels, exacerbating flooding and submersion of coastal lands.
When we say flash flooding, it's a flooding that occurs everywhere, whether there is river or not. And this occurs when the amount of rain that we receive over a particular period of time is higher than we normally receive. And normally ground has a rate at which it is absorbing the rain that is received. So if you receive so much amount of rain within a short period of time, the ground may not necessarily absorb the rainwater that's received within the shortest possible of time. So what happens is that the water will eventually start running away. And then as a result of this, so you can have flooding even if there is no river. The other incident of the flooding we are having is the river flooding. And this river flooding is occurring as a result of the high amount of water that is now entering the stream channels, which is beyond what the stream can carry. And naturally, if the stream cannot carry everything, it means the water has to spill away. This is the second extreme event that we do witness in the country. It is so serious that this kind of flooding, especially flash flooding, we are witnessing it even in dry areas of the country. Places like Sokoto, like Yobe, like Kasena. It has now become a common event now that is happening. These are things that we don't normally witness. Even when you witness this kind of flooding, normally it's riverine flooding in areas that are close to the river. But now the situation has now changed dramatically that we receive it everywhere.
Some people block a drainage that is supposed to be free. These are basic things that we can do as a people consciously. You don't use plastic bottles and all that, and then use them to block the drainage, because when the water gets to a certain level, it starts looking for how to move, to escape, and before you know it, you have erosion, especially in areas like in the southeast where erosion comes easily. In fact, you are finding erosion everywhere now because of the impact of climate change. So we have a duty to do those little basic things that we're supposed to do.
Droughts have also become a constant in Nigeria and are expected to continue in the north due to a decline in precipitation and rise in temperature. Lake Chad and other lakes in northern Nigeria are drying up and at the risk of disappearing as a result of the change in weather patterns.
The effects or the impact of climate change has increased, desertification, and that has caused drought, and that has now forced people to leave their abode areas where they used to have their means of livelihood, and has even extended to the drying up of Lake Chad, such that over about 30 million persons that previously depended on that lake, from Cameroon, Chad, and the rest of the countries, they are now looking for where to find means of livelihood. So there are so many other reasons. And of course, I would also add that the UN, in their resolutions of 3rd June 2009, 63281, stated that climate change has serious security implications, as we are feeling the effect now from banditry and all.
When you cut trees and you don't replant them, it will cause desertification. If you look at the northern part of Nigeria, that is where this thing is prevalent. People keep cutting trees and they are not replanting. So, and to some extent, it will cause insecurity, because those herders who are feeding on trees and grasses in the northern part, they will shift to the greener areas, which is in the south. And when something like that happens, it can cause chaos between the farmers and the herders. And, naturally herders are not bad people, but it's because of this climate change that is making them to look as if they are bad. So when they are looking for daily bread for their cows, they have to find something for them to eat. So to some extent, climate change causes insecurity in Nigeria.
Stakeholders say climate change in Nigeria threatens economic growth, mostly in sectors dependent on weather conditions like agriculture, fishery, and forestry. Chief Daniel Okafo has been farming for more than 25 years. He is the national president, Potato Farmers Association of Nigeria, and vice national president, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, in charge of roots and tuber crops.
I have farms in almost all over the country. The way I do is I have a lot of cooperatives that works under me, and they are the people I actually empower to do farm in all over the locations of this country. In Yola, the capital of Adamawa State, there is a place called Norman. There is a lot of crises that happened there, which I informed a lot of people about it, because the flood took over their farm and they are crying for a help, which as a national president I was invited. I went, I saw what have happened to them. I put on the write-up to Federal Minister of Agriculture. Since then they was calling, saying today they will help, the other day they will help. So we are still waiting for them.
He worries that the unpredictable nature of the rainy seasons in recent years is putting food production at risk, mostly in areas that depend on natural weather patterns.
The rains did not start in time, and when it started, it stopped for past how many months before it started again. So all because it rains about 3-4 times before it stopped. People went to the farm and started putting grains and putting things, putting potato, putting everything. All is lost. They lost it because of the weather condition. I cannot understand. Look at what happened in Abuja here, where we receive a rain, thinking that it will continue, stopped. And that stopping makes all our products now are rotting because of the bad weather. So we have a problem, and it makes what we have this year. In fact, if we did not take time, if the government did not embark in supporting the farmers, there will be a lot of hunger. If you go to my house now, you see a lot of bags of sweet potato, all of them rotting.
Another farmer laments the negative effects of the extreme weather conditions on his source of livelihood and food security in Nigeria.
We need to focus on the enlightenment, sensitization, which is very important. Tell them that, look, some they don't know what is global warming, what is climate change. They are not aware of all this kind of thing. First, we need to educate them. That education for farming, for farmers are very important. It's our first priority. Second is our seed. Most of the farmers, they are focused on the local seed. Even the new improved varieties, some of the new varieties seeds are not drought resistant. So we need to enlighten them. We need to introduce the new seed, improved seed, that drought resistant seed.
Farmers say agriculture, which employs a considerable percentage of the Nigerian population, has become more and more challenging.
The rain falls off season. The rain ceases suddenly. It wasn't like that before. These are part of the effects of climate change, and they are having impact. Why everyone is concerned is because they are having impact on the means of livelihood, on the existence of the people. Of course, when I was presenting paper at the Scottish Parliament, I asked the people from Europe, did you ever imagine that there would be that kind of flash flood that tore through Germany, so many other countries, and even in China? Nobody ever imagined that. So it really impacts on our lives.
Assuming that they have direct connection to NIMET, it will go a long way to help the local farmers to actually predict when rain will start and when this will happen, to encourage their yield, because generally they said their yield have dropped drastically. The way they harvest, it has dropped because of irregular rainfall. Like planting of beans, for instance. Some people, it affected them because rain stopped sharply. And sometimes rain will continue to fall, and when rain continue to fall on beans, beans will not do well. So all these things are just little examples of how climate change affects, or extreme weather conditions affect those local people who are farming. And you know, farming is in thing. Me too, I have a farm.
Another effect of climate change on weather conditions, as revealed in the weather alert issued by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, on the 1st of December 2021, shows dust in suspension over Chad and Niger Republic. This dust haze was transported into northern Nigeria, further reducing harmattan visibility in areas like Maiduguri, Dutse, Gombe, Yola, Bauchi, Katsina, and Kano. Road users were put on alert, while airline operators were told to adhere to safety regulations. These extreme weather conditions are the direct consequences of the depletion of the ozone shield, popularly known as the ozone layer. The ozone layer absorbs almost all the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays, which would potentially damage exposed life forms near the Earth's surface without its protective barrier. The ozone layer is depleted when harmful gases are released into the atmosphere from human activities as well as natural factors.
When the environment is not good, everybody will also suffer it. It's not only people in the rural area or the big men in the city. It affects everybody. So I will advise every Nigerian to be aware of climate change, that it exists. And it's a serious danger facing Africa, in particular Nigeria. So if we don't take our own little steps to address it or to mitigate climate change, it's going to be worse in the few years to come.
In 2017, NASA announced that the ozone hole was at its weakest since 1988 due to warm atmospheric conditions. And on October 27, 2021, NASA confirmed the ozone hole reached its maximum area, peaking at 24.8 million square kilometers, roughly the size of North America. Scientists predict it will recover by 2070 if countries work towards emission reduction cuts.
One of the remarkable things that Mr. President has done is this idea of his declaration that we are going to plant about 25 million trees across those states, about 11 of them, that are impacted, by desertification and drought, which is what we refer to, as the activities of the Great Green Wall. That's a clear indication. 25 million trees, that's not a joke. But we are not going to concentrate only on these 11 or so states covering about 1,350 kilometers, of area. We should also bear that in mind for our own areas. When you are removing trees, when you are felling, it's important for you to even plant two.
If you want to build a house, or even if you have built a house and you look around, there is no shelter, there is no tree, just plant. There are so many trees you can plant, either economic or non-economic trees you can plant, and it will go a long way to control the oxygen that you are receiving in your house and to mitigate the climate change. Secondly, I will also encourage household and Nigerians to also stop use of that dangerous generator called I Pass My Neighbor. It can kill, and it can kill environments. Buy energy saving bulb. Don't use the other one that is cheaper. That one should be around 100 naira, but energy savings is up to 300 naira. But it does not have any effect on environment or even human being.
The 2021 Glasgow Climate Agreement has been described as the first ever climate deal to explicitly plan to reduce coal, seen as the worst fossil fuel for greenhouse gases. The Glasgow deal calls for more urgent emission cuts and promises more money for developing countries to help them adapt to the impact of climate change. A decision to completely phase out coal, which was included in earlier negotiation draft, was removed After India opposed with the argument that developing countries cannot promise to phase out coal and fossil fuel subsidies when they still have to deal with their development agenda and poverty eradication.
Critical things like maintain were prominently mentioned and attention given. At least we have about either 70 or so countries signing up on what they want to do and the actions they want to take. That is very, very important. We also saw that even the United States and China came out and had their own pact on how they are going to work together. Because it's important to have the major polluters on board, which of course is China, and then United States, and then you start talking about India, Brazil, and the rest of them. So to have all these people come on board and know that, look, we need to work together now, because unless we work hard within this decade, we'll probably end up with a serious catastrophe.
Countries agreed at the end of the summit to phase down rather than phase out coal. As part of the agreement, countries decided to meet again to agree on more major carbon cuts in order to reach the goal of keeping within the 1.5 degrees Celsius emission target. To meet this goal, which was agreed in Paris in 2015, countries need to work towards reducing global emissions by 45% by 2030 and to nearly zero by mid-century.
It requires a serious sensitization campaign so that people come on board, people know that this is a threat. And that way, as government is working hard to make sure that gas is used in different, we're not saying it's not harmful, but it's not at the same level as charcoal, and so that the government is working hard to make sure that this goes to homes, that we're able to reach out to people, that we're able to make these things available and affordable.
Coal is responsible for about 40% of CO2 emissions each year, making it central in efforts to keep within the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Experts say it is not just the decisions of world leaders at climate summits that impact the planet. Conscious efforts by individuals in their everyday action can help to reduce the negative effect of global warming.
Instead of relying on wood fuel for us to cook at homes, are there ways we can make use of renewable energy options? For instance, in Nigeria, we have Center for Renewable Energy Research, well known at University that has discovered a number of solar-powered stoves, solar-powered dryers, solar-powered grinders, and so many other things. Whatever you want to do at home, there are devices you can make use of that rely entirely on solar that can help you to do that. So the only thing that we are supposed to do now is to make huge investment, create necessary condition for the private sector to come so that they can invest heavily, so that these technologies can be made available, can be made within the reach of everybody.
For Nigeria to walk the talk, President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the Climate Change Bill into law. The bill was sponsored by Honorable Samuel Ifeanyi Onuigbo, member representing Umuahia North and South Federal Constituency in Abia State. The act provides for the mainstreaming of climate change actions in Nigeria and the establishment of a National Council on Climate Change.
This bill has a National Council on Climate Change to be chaired by Mr. President, and in his absence, the Vice President. And then you have ministers from environment, justice, petroleum, transportation, mines, and so many of the women affairs and all that. All these ministries, that the activities contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. So they are all members. And also the governor of the central bank, and then the national security advisor, and of course I just talked about security here. And then you now have the chairman of the governors forum, and also the president of Association of Local Government. Because the issues of climate change are not, just handled at the national level. It goes down to the sub-nationals. And they are the ones who are directly involved, those who use charcoal, who use firewood, and who are busy felling trees here and there.
The Climate Change Act also paves way for environmental and economic accounting and a push for a net zero emission deadline plan in the country. This follows Mr. President's commitment at the World Leaders Summit in Glasgow that Nigeria will cut its carbon emission to net zero by 2060.
Whatever target you set will be monitored and reported in a manner that something as high profile as the council can, beat their chest and say, this is where we are. And it's going to be reported around the world. So that way, if you say we're going to hit net zero by 2060, you should be working towards that in a very organized, properly monitored, and properly reported approach so that you see what you are doing and you can see the effect. It's not a guesswork. So that's precisely where we are moving from what it used to be to what we have signed up to right now.